Kutagara Suttas. Now this is a pair of suttas, both taught to Anathapindika. They're called Kutagara because they're the same key parable, that is what is called a pinnacle house. Kutagara. Kuta is a kind like a tower, kind of sloping roof, prominent roof, and then agara means house. So it's usually translated as pinnacle house. Each of the suttas also have their own name, reflecting their theme. In the case of the first Kutagara Sutta, it's called Arakita Sutta, the discourse on the unguarded, A3.105. And then in the second sutta, it's called the Vyapana Sutta, the discourse on the defile, A3106. The structure of the two suttas are very close, except that the first sutta is longer, and the second sutta is shorter, almost like a summary of the first sutta. The theme is the same. The theme is about guarding the three doors of action: body, speech, and mind. And this practice is compared to the roof of a house. If the roof of the house is intact, if the roof of the hut is intact, then rain cannot penetrate, and the main beam of the house or the pillar of the house will not be affected, it will not get wet, it will not rot. So the house will remain strong. And now the first sutta is the longer, more complete, so we just look at the first one. The second sutta is, in a way, contained in the first one. It's sort of a summary of it. So both suttas are each sutta is divided into two parts. The first is the negative aspect, the unguarded mind, and the second part is the guarded mind. And this sutta is very simple. There's nothing much really to talk about doctrine-wise. This is a very important fact to understand when we study or listen to the suttas. It's not about learning new things, it is not about accumulating knowledge. In Indian philosophy, there are many kinds of knowledge. In Buddhism too, we talk about many kinds of knowledge. There is worldly knowledge and there is spiritual knowledge. In fact, if we accumulate a lot of knowledge that is theory, it can be a burden. In other words, we know a lot of things, but they are not very helpful. We call them views, actually, ditthi, just a way of looking at something. In other words, the purpose of the sutta, the purpose of teaching the Dharma, listening to the Dharma, to the Buddha's teaching, is to go through some kind of self-awareness, self-understanding, and so to liberate ourselves. Ultimately, of course, our goal is awakening itself. So this sutta reflects just that. We see something very simple. A lot of people might take for granted and even just kind of set it aside and say, oh, I know this one, very familiar with these teachings, talking about pure minds, talking about the three doors of action. And that is a very unhelpful attitude. It's kind of summarily dismissing wisdom, in other words. In this sense, knowledge is our hindrance to awakening. It's not that knowing something is not good. It is knowing something and stopping there and not seeing reality with that knowledge. That is what is a hindrance. I mean, it's just like we know how to heal people, we know the nature of diseases, but we don't help the sick, we don't keep ourselves healthy, and so on. So that knowledge is useless, in other words. Or worse, we use that knowledge for wrong purpose. So the teaching itself, the Dharma itself, its purpose is for self-understanding, and then self-taming, and finally self-liberation, that is awakening. So we see this, the sutta here goes in very small cycles, in mini cycles here, based on a theme. If you like, you can say these are variations on the theme of purifying the three laws of action, body, speech and mind. And of course there's a parable to this, and the parable is worked in two ways, the bad and the good. So this is where a sutta or reflection like this is best to record it, to read it mindfully and then listen to it, and then calm ourselves, and then turn off the recorder and go into meditation. So this is a great way of practicing the Dharma, not for theoretical academic knowledge, but to use the sutta for self-liberation. And let's look at the discourse on the unguarded. It's on page 135, or the first discourse on the pinnacle house, A3 105. Then the house lord Anathapindika approached the Blessed One. Having gone up to the Blessed One, he saluted him and sat down at one side. This is typical of Anathapindika. As we know, he is the Buddha's chief supporter, and he is very concerned about the Buddha, that the Buddha would feel obliged to answer whatever questions he asks. So whenever he meets the Buddha, whenever he goes to see the Buddha, he will pay his respects, he will greet the Buddha, but he will never ask any Dharma questions. So what the Buddha does is the Buddha would scan his mind, would read his mind and see what's on his mind, and then talk accordingly. So on this occasion, the Buddha gives a very simple teaching. This is the occasion probably Anathapindika met the Buddha quite recently, the kind of an early stage in his Buddhist life, because his teaching is very simple. So let's start right away with the teaching. It's section 2. The narrator says, as Anathapindika sat thus at one side, the Blessed One said this to him: House Lord, when the mind is unguarded, bodily action too is unguarded. Verbal action too is unguarded. Mental action too is unguarded. So notice there's a very simple structure. The key idea is the mind needs to be guarded. And the mind, when we are not mindful, then body, speech or mind are also not mindful. Unguarded here is arakita. So here of course is a teaching on the nature of cetana, the nature of intention. We have to understand the way our mind works and keep a wholesome mind, and towards the mind that is free from greed, hate, delusion. So this is the first part. Then the Buddha builds on this first cycle. In section 3, the Buddha says, for one whose bodily action is unguarded, whose verbal action is unguarded, whose mental action is unguarded, his bodily action is defiled too. His verbal action is defiled too. His mental action is defiled too. So here we see the second part of the teaching repeated. The play on the word unguarded, arakita. So if the three laws of action are unguarded, if we are callous through body, speech and mind, then what is expressed through the three doors would be defiled, would be impure, in other words. So this is impurity through intention, not a ritual thing. Then the teaching builds, continues from there. For one whose bodily action is defiled, whose verbal action is defiled, whose mental action is defiled, his bodily action is rotten too. His verbal action is rotten too. His mental action is rotten too. So here, the Pali word is puti, rotten. Here is a general word for rotten. You can apply to, and usually to, so like flowers which are kind of many days old. You can also refer to food, and also can refer, in this case, to actions. So in this case, puti is used in a metaphorical, figurative way. Then the teaching builds up, continues from there. Section 7. For one whose bodily action is rotten, whose verbal action is rotten, whose mental action is rotten, there is no happy death, no happy end of time. In other words, this person who habitually creates bad karma through body, speech and mind will die unhappy. In other words, will have a bad rebirth. So this is the first round. Then in the next round, there is the parable. Right? So here the Buddha talks in terms of ideas, or rather talk directly in terms of ideas or teaching, and then in the second round he uses a story, he uses a parable. Section 9. House lot, just as when a pinnacle house is ill-thatched, the roof is not properly thatched, the pinnacle is unprotected too. Its rafters are unprotected too. Its walls are unprotected too. Right. So here, the English word is unprotected. So this is a contrapuntal. In other words, it is point counterpoint. This verse 9 is the counterpart of verse 1. In verse 1, the mind is unguarded. So the word unguarded and the word unprotected here, although different in English, are the same in Pali, which is arakita, unprotected. Arakita can translate as unguarded, unprotected. So it is applied to the three doors of action. Now it's applied to a house, if you like. In this case, is that the house is not, the roof is not properly covered. The pinnacle, the top part of the house is unprotected. Rain gets in. The rafters, the beam across the house is unprotected. The walls are unprotected. So you can imagine water goes in, and in India and in South Asia, the rain can be quite bad, quite heavy. So this is the first part. And this is imagery very familiar to Anathapindika, to all Indians and to most South and Southeast Asians. We know very well the rains can be very heavy and can do a lot of damage to the house. Then the Buddha continues, section 10. The pinnacle is drenched. Now the word drenched is tinta. But tinta again is polysemic. You can also translate as rotten. Okay? So here if you see, it's similarly reflecting the previous teaching. So you've got to imagine, as with the English word, you've got to think of the Pali word tinta. The pinnacle is drenched or rotten too. The rafters are drenched or rotten too. And the walls are drenched or rotten too. Right? So because this building made of wood, so when wood gets wet over a long time, it becomes rotten. Even so, right? So these are just two aspects to versus the parable, then the moment you see even so, the Buddha is going to link it to the teaching. Even so, house lord, when the mind, house lord, is unguarded, bodily action too is unguarded, verbal action too is unguarded, mental action too is unguarded. For one whose bodily action is unguarded, whose verbal action is unguarded, whose mental action is unguarded, his bodily action is defiled too, his verbal action is defiled too, his mental action is defiled too. For one whose bodily action is defiled, whose verbal action is defiled, whose mental action is defiled, his bodily action is rotten or drenched tinta too. His verbal action is rotten too. His mental action is rotten too. For one whose bodily action is rotten, whose verbal action is rotten, whose mental action is rotten, there is no happy death, no happy end of time. So this is the unhappy cycle, if you like. So here we're talking about three doors: action, body, speech, and mind. They are regarded as actions in Buddhist psychology. What we do with our mind, what we do with our speech, what we do with our body, in other words. And these are covered by the 5 precepts. Now the happy cycle. Section 18 onwards. House lord, when the mind, house lord, is guarded, and here the Pali word is rakita. Bodily action too is guarded. Verbal action too is guarded. Mental action too is guarded. So here the mind is the key to a wholesome life, in other words, a wholesome person. For one whose bodily action is guarded, whose verbal action is guarded, whose mental action is guarded, his bodily action is undefiled too. Here undefiled is anavasutta. His verbal action is undefiled too. His mental action is undefiled too. For one whose bodily action is undefiled, whose verbal action is undefiled, whose mental action is undefiled, his bodily action is undefiled too. His verbal action is 22. His bodily action is not rotten too. His verbal action is not rotten too. His mental action is not rotten too. For one whose bodily action is not rotten, whose verbal action is not rotten, whose mental action is not rotten, there is a happy death, a happy end of time. So this is the good cycle. So we see here development from guarding, then the mind is pure, then because the mind is pure, it is healthy, right? And then this kind of person passes away happy. Now, of course, you might think, oh, this is about death. But here we can metaphorically take death as something like the end of the day, or the time when you're by yourself, you're very calm and peaceful, and you're reflecting on what has gone on before. So, in a sense, like end of the year, for example, right? Or normally we like to make resolutions during at the start of the year. But here, at the end of the year, it's good to review the year too. So there are two aspects of this kind of spiritual exercise, if you like. So when something has ended, we can review how did it happen. If it went bad, then I say, oh, why? Then I've learned something about it. If it was good, that's fine, but we need to keep up with that kind of situation. Then the Buddha finishes up with the well-touched pinnacle house, parable of the well-touched pinnacle house, section 35. House lord, just as when a pinnacle house is well-touched, its pinnacle is protected too, its rafters are protected too, Its walls are protected too, the whole house, the main structure of the house are safe. The pinnacle is not rotten too, the rafters are not rotten too, the walls are not rotten too. The whole house is intact, strong, and it serves to protect us so we can live in that kind of very safe and comfortable environment. Even so, House Lord, when the mind, House Lord, is guarded, bodily action too is guarded, verbal action too is guarded, mental action too is guarded. For one whose bodily action is guarded, whose verbal action is guarded, whose mental action is guarded, his bodily action is undefiled, his verbal action is undefiled, his mental action is undefiled. For one whose action is undefiled, whose verbal action is undefiled, whose mental action is undefiled, his bodily action is not rotten, his verbal action is not rotten, his mental action is not rotten. For one whose bodily action is not rotten, whose verbal action is not rotten, whose mental action is not rotten, there is a happy death, a happy end of time. So the sutta ends here. The amazing thing here is the words are very simple, the theme is very simple, but we have to picture this situation. It's the Buddha talking, and the Buddha has got this beautiful sonorous voice. So imagine we get someone who, some of those really great actors with a very good voice, they would read certain literature or poems. I mean, you listen just to the voice, the right intonation and the pronunciation and so on, articulation. You have a great sense of joy just listening to them. So here too, we see that kind of effect, or maybe we might not if we do not love the suttas. We might say, oh, this is a simple sutta and dismiss it like that. That's not a very good attitude. We have to question what's going on here. So too, we have to reflect. In a sense, the Buddha is telling us all these things. Try to imagine this wonderful voice that he has and this simple teaching. And remember, if we more or less can summarize this whole thing, we can just say, oh, this is just a teaching on the mind and the three laws of action. If the mind is pure, the actions are pure. That's it, And you dismiss the whole thing. It's not more important. You have set it aside. It's like you have this wonderful volume, very precious book that you have. You took a long time saving your money and trying to get it. Finally you got it. And then what do you do with it? You just put it on the shelf and leave it there and forget about it and start looking for another book. You never really use it. But here we have a chance to use this precious volume, to listen to it, to practice it. So it's all laid out in a way to go through our whole being and to change the way we feel and think, to be happy, to be at peace, and in that way to be motivated to really keep our body, speech and mind in order, to be wholesome and happy, and that way live a life that is wholesome, and when the end comes we are happy too. So this is a sutta for reflection, and we need to listen to it reflectively. So with that we conclude this wonderful sutta with a short reflection. When we listen, when we read a sutta, we should spend a few minutes just to picture as if it is being given alive by the Buddha. How would he have spoken it? Maybe not exactly with the words as the sutta is recorded, because it is a kind of a stylized way of memorizing the teaching. But we can imagine the way he spoke the Dharma. And that would give a fuller dimensional, a three-dimensional teaching that will empower us with joy and peace and wisdom that the Buddha is Himself giving the teaching to us. Reflecting in this way is wonderful good karma. Reflecting in this way, let us invoke the power of the three jewels so that we are strengthened with wisdom and courage to aspire to attain at least stream winning in this life itself. And also, by the power of the three jewels and all the good things we have done, let us send out our loving kindness to all our loved ones, to all those who have been kind and supportive of us, to all those people who are practicing and teaching the Buddha's teaching. May they be well, may they be happy. To those who are still struggling with the truth, who are still seeking the truth, may they quickly find the true teaching in this life itself and be well and happy. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.